Most men still believe a deadly lie that if they're nice enough, available enough, and honest enough, a woman will see their value and choose them. But Machiavelli would scoff at this illusion, because women don't chase niceness, they chase power. And power by nature doesn't beg. It doesn't explain. It doesn't wait. In the psychological war of attraction, the man who is too eager to please becomes invisible. The man who validates too quickly becomes boring. The man who's always available becomes dispensable. Women are biologically wired to pursue what they can't quite predict, what they haven't yet conquered. When you give them everything up front, attention, affection, access, you remove the very tension that attraction is built on. Modern dating advice teaches you to be open, communicative, emotionally vulnerable. But Machiavelli would give you a different rule. Power is never revealed. It is implied. And in attraction, the most powerful thing you can do is be felt without trying, desired without chasing, and present without needing. True attraction isn't about making her like you. It's about training her mind to need your presence to feel validated. You don't do that by being loud, flashy, or constantly texting. You do it by withholding just enough to become a psychological puzzle. You do it by disrupting patterns. You do it by controlling your energy, never giving more than is earned, never overextending, never needing the outcome. By the end of this video, you'll understand 5 Machiavellian rules that flip the entire dynamic, so you're no longer the one chasing her attention. You become the one she watches, wonders about, obsesses over, and slowly, quietly begins to chase. You will come back being the one in control rather than the controlled. If you're ready for this transition, hit the subscribe button and subscribe to become a part of our community. I promise you, you will think differently, feel differently, and enjoy your relationship differently. Only if you subscribe and watch till the end. Let's get started. Rule 1. Withhold validation. Ruthlessly. Most men destroy their own allure by doing something they think is noble, giving constant compliments, praise, and attention. They validate a woman before she's earned it, and in doing so, they hand over all their power. Machiavelli would see this for what it is: strategic suicide. Validation is the currency of desire. And just like currency, its value depends entirely on scarcity. What is rare becomes priceless. What is given freely becomes worthless. The moment you hand a woman your approval without effort, you remove the challenge, and the chase dies instantly. Here's the brutal truth. Women aren't wired to desire what's easily attained. They're drawn to mystery, to uncertainty, to power that doesn't beg to be seen. When a man withholds validation, not out of manipulation, but out of self-respect, it creates psychological tension. And that tension is the birthplace of attraction. It doesn't matter how good-looking you are. If you flood her with attention, you become another background character in her life. But if you remain composed, neutral, observant, if you give no signal that she has conquered you, she'll start questioning her own value. That's when the chase begins. Most men don't understand this. They think compliments will win her over. They think reacting to her every move, every photo, every post will earn her affection. But the Machiavellian knows, the more emotionally available you are, the more invisible you become. So what's the move? You stay still. You stay centered. You reserve your praise like a king who doesn't give titles to just anyone. You watch her. You let her feel your gaze, but not your approval. You speak calmly. You nod slowly. You keep your face unreadable. When she says something impressive, don't react. Let the silence linger. When she dresses up hoping to catch your eye, glance once and return to your focus. Let her wonder what you're thinking. Let her feel the absence of your validation. That absence will haunt her. It will make her want to earn what you haven't given. Tactically, this means you compliment others publicly. Congratulate the waitress on her hustle. Mention a colleague's intelligence. But with her, you remain quiet. If she calls it out, smile slightly and say nothing. Why? Because what is earned is respected, and what is withheld becomes desired. This isn't manipulation. This is restraint. It's the refusal to hand over your psychological leverage just because she smiled. Machiavelli would say, never show your hand before the game begins. Let them play first. When you master the art of withholding validation, you don't chase women, they chase the feeling of finally being seen by you. And that, my friend, is control. Rule 2, be unavailable and unpredictable. Most men ruin attraction by being too available. Always replying, always showing up, always predictable. Predictability is comfort, and comfort kills desire. The second she knows when you'll text, where you'll be, and how you'll react, the chase is over. You've become routine, and routine is repulsive to the feminine mind. It signals that you're not busy, not in demand, not a man in motion. Unavailable men are seen as valuable. Unpredictable men are seen as powerful. This is why Machiavelli would never give his presence freely. He understood something most men today never will. Power is not about being there, it's about being missed. Let her wonder where you are. Let her sit with silence after she texts. Let her replay your last message 5 times because the next one doesn't come. You don't do this to manipulate. You do this to build emotional spikes, the sudden gaps, the unexpected absences, the moments where her certainty collapses and she's forced to feel curiosity, anticipation, even panic. These are not flaws in attraction, they are attraction. The feminine is drawn to mystery, to the man whose presence feels earned, not given. And mystery doesn't exist in a schedule, it exists in irregularity. Here's the tactical breakdown. Ditch the routine. If you always message at night, skip a day. If you always meet up on weekends, go silent one weekend. Let her notice the absence. Control the tempo. Never match her rhythm. Set your own. If she's speeding up, slow down. If she's pulling back, disappear. Vanishing is strategy. When you disappear at your peak of charm, of presence, of attention, that's when the emotional spike hits hardest. And when you reappear, don't explain. Don't justify. Let your calm presence speak louder than any excuse. You were busy, you were building, you were living a life that doesn't orbit her. That contrast is what makes her chase. That unpredictability is what makes her obsessed. Because now you're not just a man, you're a puzzle. A mystery she needs to solve. And in solving you, she becomes addicted to you. Unavailability is not rejection, it's power. Unpredictability is not rudeness, it's dominance. Want to be chased? Don't be present. Be missed. Rule 3. Flirt through indifference. Flirting isn't about charm, it's about control. Most men think they need to win her over with smiles, compliments, and overenthusiasm. But that's not seduction, it's submission. And submission repels power. Women don't chase men who seek approval, they chase men who make them question theirs. Smile less, observe more, tease without trying to win. Machiavellian flirting is psychological tension, not emotional expression. You're not trying to be liked, you're playing with her perception. The moment she thinks she has your full attention, she relaxes, and relaxed interest fades. But when she can't figure out if you're drawn to her or just momentarily amused, she leans in. This is the power of strategic coldness. You give just enough warmth to spark interest, but never enough to satisfy curiosity. You compliment her indirectly, then disappear. You listen without reacting. You tease, then go silent. You maintain eye contact not to flatter, but to assess. You're never desperate to close. You're content to let her linger in doubt. Indifference isn't rudeness. It's dominance, disguised as calm. A woman will chase a man who shows that he could have her, but simply isn't in a rush. Why? Because that quiet confidence forces her to prove she's worthy of your time. It creates a power vacuum, and she rushes to fill it with effort, charm, and curiosity. Flirtation through indifference is a test. You're filtering for emotional discipline. You're showing her that attention isn't cheap, that you're not a boy chasing her beauty, you're a man training her to meet your standards. Every moment you stay calm while she performs is a signal of strength. Never chase. Never over-engage. Let your stillness be confusing. Let your disinterest be magnetic. The more they feel the gap between your presence and your availability, the more they invest emotionally to close it. Machiavelli would not flirt to impress. He would flirt to unbalance. He'd never be the loudest voice in the room. He'd be the unreadable silence that pulls eyes toward him. Because true power isn't spoken, it's felt in the space you create when you withhold approval. Lead without explaining. The most dangerous habit men develop in attraction? Explaining themselves. They clarify, justify, overexpress, thinking logic wins desire. It doesn't. Logic is for courtrooms. Attraction is warfare. And in warfare, every explanation is an admission of uncertainty. Machiavelli would never explain. He would move. Power doesn't ask permission, it assumes position. The man who leads without defending his decisions projects dominance, and dominance is irresistible. You don't tell her why you're choosing the place. You simply say, "We're going here." You don't ask if she agrees, you observe if she follows. That's how you test attraction at its root, compliance without coercion. Women don't fall for men who ask, they fall for men who know. Not because they're right, but because they move like they are. That certainty bends perception, it overrides hesitation. The man who leads, even blindly, holds more power than the man who overthinks with precision, because presence always wins over perfection. Leadership in attraction isn't about control, it's about direction. When you lead calmly, you create psychological safety. Not by coddling, but by showing you know where you're going. That removes her burden to decide. Most women don't want to lead in relationships. They want to test who can. And every time you hesitate, apologize, or explain, you fail that test. Kill the need to explain. Replace it with movement. Want to leave? Stand up. Want space? Take it. Want to change the vibe? Shift your tone. There's no need for disclaimers. The more you explain, the more you weaken your frame. Power is communicated through nonchalance, through a man who moves like he doesn't need permission to exist. Strategic silence is louder than logic. She asks why you're not texting back immediately. You don't explain. She questions your distance. You don't justify. Every unanswered question becomes a mirror, and she begins to question herself. That's control. Not because you're manipulating, but because you're centered, unmoved, intentional. Machiavelli would say, "A prince does not ask if his step was proper. He lets the results speak." And in attraction, results are felt, not in her words, but in her energy, her effort, her pursuit. Lead without explaining, decide without apology, move without fear. Because the moment you explain your power, you've already lost it. Rule 5. Let her prove her value. Here's the truth most men are too desperate to face. The moment you start proving your worth to a woman, you've already lost her. Attraction is not about you convincing her you're valuable. It's about you making her wonder if she is. Weak men perform. They compliment endlessly. They pay, chase, call, text, explain, all in a frantic dance of pick me, see me, choose me. But Machiavellian men reverse the game. They make the woman audition for their presence. They observe, assess, and stay still while she scrambles to earn their attention. This isn't cruelty, it's clarity. When you chase, you give power. When you wait, you expose intent. The women who respect you will step up. The women who only wanted attention will vanish. Let them vanish. Your job is not to entertain her, it's to elevate the standard. You don't chase her beauty, you test her consistency. You don't validate her presence, you watch how she reacts to your silence. This is not arrogance, this is filtering. And Machiavelli would say, a prince must never beg to be followed, he must walk and see who follows without being asked. Set the tone, then shut up. If she brings chaos, you withdraw peace. If she disrespects, you disappear. If she breaks your standards, you don't scold, you remove access. This rewires her brain to associate your presence with reward and her behavior with outcome. Not words, not negotiation, but cause and effect. And nothing is more psychologically addictive than the feeling of earning something rare. Here's the move. Don't validate effort that wasn't requested. Validate results that align with your values. She supports your mission? Reward that. She honors your time? Show warmth. But if she plays games, acts entitled, tests limits, remain calm and completely unavailable. Let her feel the coldness of being forgettable. Women are conditioned to be chaste. When you don't, they either evolve or exit. You want both outcomes. One gives you alignment, the other gives you peace. Power isn't in punishing her, it's in not reacting to her. She flirts, you nod. She pulls back, you shrug. She disappears, you move on with zero commentary. And here's what happens next. She returns, but this time, respectfully. Because when a man holds his value like a weapon, they either rise to meet it or break trying. Let her prove she belongs. Let her prove she can handle you. Let her prove she understands your world isn't free, it's earned. Final Machiavellian truth. A man who knows his worth never trades it for company. He trades it only for loyalty. Be that man. Be rare. Be silent. And soon, you won't be chasing anyone. You'll be sorting through who's worthy to stay. Know this. Bookmark. You're not chasing her. You're training her mind. Most men believe attraction is luck, chemistry, charm, or destiny. But that's a lie fed to the weak. Machiavellian men know the truth. Attraction is not an accident. It's engineered. Every move you make, every silence you hold, every boundary you enforce, trains her perception of you. And here's what most don't understand. Perception beats reality. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be mysterious. You don't have to be the most handsome, just the hardest to figure out. This is not manipulation. This is the science of status. When you are too available, too eager, too expressive, you remove the mystery. And without mystery, there is no magnetism. She knows where you stand. She knows what you'll say. She knows she has you. But the moment you become unpredictable, emotionally unreadable, calmly detached, you begin training her mind. You train her to crave your validation because it's rare. You train her to associate your silence with authority because you don't need to explain. You train her to see your time as sacred because you never begged to give it. And now she's hooked. Not on you, but on the experience of earning you. This is the secret. Powerful attraction is not about pulling her closer. It's about pulling back until she chooses to follow. Let others text first. Let others apologize for masculinity. You sit still like a lion and let the jungle shift around you. You don't prove you're alpha, you simply never act beta. You don't chase validation, you issue silence like a verdict. And she begins to realize you're not like the rest because you're not chasing her. You're training her brain to see you as rare, certain, and irreplaceable. This is how kings attract queens, not by kneeling to impress, but by ruling in silence. Final Machiavellian insight. The man who says nothing, proves nothing, and gives nothing away becomes the only man she cannot stop thinking about. Be that man. Not cold, not cruel, but calculated, calm, and completely unforgettable. What you just heard wasn't dating advice, it was psychological warfare. Every silence, every withdrawal, every calculated move was a weapon. You don't chase approval, you don't fight for her attention. You position yourself as the man she can't predict and can't forget. This is the Machiavellian edge, the art of being desired without effort. And if you're ready to sharpen that edge even further, subscribe now. Because we're not teaching charm, we're teaching domination. Don't seek to be liked. Be remembered, be desired, be chaste. We move in silence and let the world adjust. Welcome to the new breed.